by Friday. Currently, as we speak, BTL, WASA, I like to say WASA, BWS, you would like me to say WASA, BWS, BTL, BL, SpeedNet, their storefronts have been closed. The issue is you have people who are anxious to pay their bills. They want to pay their utility bills, and not everybody has the ability to do it online. Not everybody has the ability to go to a different place of business to pay for another utility because it's too crowded sometimes. So beginning like Friday, from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., BTL, BEL, BWS, SpeedNet, these places will be opening up their storefronts so people can pay their bills only. So beginning Friday from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., you can go to the utility companies just to pay your bills. So only the cashier will open. You now be open for business, customer service, and like you have to do that on the phone. But just to pay your bills, so people can be on time with their bills and no computer glitch would cut out your water, your light, or your phone. You'll be able to physically go there from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. to pay your bills. Today, a number of checks were issued. So people now will have the need to access banks. Currently, as the law stands, the banks are open, and banks and financial institutions are open from 8 to 12. But beginning like Friday, and I guess it will be like next week, so for the banks primarily, the banks will now be opened from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. That's not the law now, but that will be the law around Friday. So we're saying it now to prepare people. So let's recap. It's not the law now, but it will be the law Friday that banks will be open from 8 to 4. Public utilities will be open from 8 to 4, so you can pay your bills only. There will be a curfew that allows children 16 and under to be on the streets and in the public only from 8 to 4. And then doctors will only be allowed to work at one of either the private institutions or the public institutions. You can't work in both places, so that there isn't any chance of any conflict or of whatever kind. So if you're a doctor, pick one. So those are the 4 things that are not yet in the SI, but they will be in the SI come Friday. That's our goal, to accomplish that. Now, let's look at what the law is currently and should be the law after Friday as well. And like I said, there is a special provision now for Sunday. And I will read you what the law is as of now for Sunday only when we get to that part. We like to remind people, you know, every night we arrest people, you know. I like to remind people that there is a curfew from 8 p.m. to 5 a.m. in the morning. So once 8 o'clock come, curfew start, you know, done till 5 in the morning. And the regulation 4 says the curfew is from 8 p.m. until 4:59 a.m. the next day for the entire country. Nobody is supposed to be in the streets or in a public place or space during that time. The only exception, the only people who could be on the streets between 8 p.m. and 5 a.m. are BDF soldiers, police officers, Coast Guard people, Customs and Excise Department people, immigration officers, and any frontline healthcare provider on duty working for the ministry responsible for health, including hospitals, which are statutory bodies. However, Let me repeat. Police, BDF, Coast Guard, immigration people, customs and excise, frontline healthcare workers. But they must be on duty. So if you're a policeman and you're not on duty, you cannot be on the streets at 10 at night simply because you're a policeman. You must be on duty. So that's very, very important to understand. So those are the only people allowed on the streets during the curfew. If you have a business that's an essential service and that's allowed to open, and you even are allowed to open 24 hours or for an extended period of time, make sure your people are working in shifts so that your people can be in the establishment before 8 p.m. and they can stay in there until 5 a.m. the next morning. We have to all make the adjustments to ensure that we are abiding by the rules and regulations set down by the Oversight Committee for this COVID-19 situation.
If I could just jump in for a second there. The last time you were here,
yes,
you coined a term that has been cemented into Legion Vernacular now. Have any of those passes been given out? What is the situation
which
with
pass?
passes?
The sweetheart pass? Well, I have signed no sweetheart pass, which is evidence once again that nobody in Belize has a sweetheart, and so there's no need for any. So everybody is faithful. Everybody is happy with who they're with at home at 8 p.m., and there was no need to issue any of those. So if anybody say they have a pass badge signed by me, then they lie, because I have signed none.
And will any be signed?
Well, it depends on the situation. So far, we have assessed many situations, and what we've discovered is that people don't really need the pass, because arrangements can be made for you without you necessarily having a pass. And in any event, if you have to work in an emergency situation at 1 or 2 in the morning, you would require some sort of police presence. Check the cane farmers and the people in the sugar industry. About 200 to 300 of them who must be out there by 2 or 3 in the morning. We simply get a list, put it into the EOC with the Joint Intelligence Coordinating Committee, and then they facilitate these people with the commanders up now, the police commanders, and we facilitate everybody and they're happy. BL is satisfied, BTL is satisfied, SpeedNet is satisfied. Everybody is being facilitated who is an essential service who has to move. So there is no need to this point that we can see for anybody to get an individual pass to say you must be out on the street at 11 at night. Like I said the last time, not even the Prime Minister have one. Not even me have one. What do we need one for? We have no need to be out there after 8 p.m. And we should be setting the example as leaders and as business owners and managers to demonstrate that we need to stay home. It's the only thing that is going to help us fight this disease successfully. Staying home. So you stay home as much as possible, and like I said, we have yet to come up with anything that you must do, that you can't do between 5 a.m. and 8 p.m. We have yet to see. We have yet to be convinced that anything you have to do can't be done in that period. I am glad to see that the news people made an adjustment. Some of them are now starting their news at 6 o'clock.
6 p.m. indeed, yes.
They were one of the ones fighting the most for passes, and we have not given them any. Because we're saying, look, if you need to, you read your news, you put your news out there, and I am sure there's a way for you to document the news for your online service. You can do that at home when the news is over. Or if in the event that you must stay beyond 8 p.m., then a police officer will come and escort your people to their homes. Because when they leave your place of establishment, we want them to go straight home. So that's the situation with that. I don't know if you have any more questions on that.
Well, I don't know, were you finished going through the document, the SAD?
No, just the start one.
What other?
If you have any more questions, then if you have any burning questions, then I can go through it.
Well, we have...
Remember, like, I want to explain the Sunday situation.
Okay, please do that because there was some confusion.
But
with
what
regard
I
to that
think
this
is
weekend.
important, though, is that some people are still confused with times.
Right.
So let me go through. I just want to remind people, you know, between 5 a.m. and 8 p.m. at night, purchase essential needs. One new dress or one new pretty shirt, no essential. Attending for medical or veterinary emergencies. Medical emergencies. An essential worker of our approved business. Home health care provider. Essential worker acting within the scope of his duties. Security guards. So, if you are out, you must be out for those purposes. Remember, you can't just take one stroll. I understand it's becoming claustrophobic for some people. Some people have terrible cabin fever and they need to get out. But please only leave your homes for urgent needs. And you cannot just be wandering all over the place. And even when you're out, maintain your social distancing. Practice good hygiene when you're out. So for the limited time that you need to be out, practice those things and go straight back home where you're safe. Now, before I get to Sunday, let me just...
I think there's some confusion when it comes to the times as far as
Right.
business establishments being
No.
open, shops and restaurants
From
and stuff.
5 a.m. to 7 p.m. From 5 to 7. Fuel stations, fuel depots, LPG suppliers, LPS depots, and LPG distributors. Gas station, butane, 5 a.m. to 7 p.m. Agro-processors, food and carbonated and other beverage manufacturers. These are allowed to open 5 to 7 p.m. However, only the agro-processors and food manufacturers shall be allowed to operate for a period of 14 days from the commencement of these regulations, which was last week. So right now, the only people who should be operating are agro-processors, farmers and the like, and people who are providing food. Food manufacturers, agro-processors. Agricultural and aquaculture farms, shrimp farms, tilapia farms, different types of agricultural farms. Fishers. Now, when we say fishers, we mean not sport fishing. We mean people who are fishermen, who fish for a living. Those are the people who are allowed to operate between 5 a.m. and 7 p.m. So, to some people who we know, no, you can't go sport fishing for marlin because you are not considered to be a fisher because that's not your livelihood. Waste disposal and sanitation companies, 5 to 7. Public transportation providers, 5 to 7. But remember, no public transportation is allowed to operate for the next 14 days except for taxis. But you can't operate from a taxi stand if you're a taxi. Get online, use your Facebook privilege to promote yourself, and people could call you and say, I need a taxi to go to the grocery store, or I need a taxi to go to the doctor. You can be on call as a taxi driver, but you cannot be stationary at some taxi stand. No, that's 5 to 7 p.m. 5 to 4 p.m. Bakeries, tortilla factories. 6 a.m. to 4 p.m. Markets with a type of agricultural produce, fish and meat from 6 a.m. to 4 p.m. Notice we give an extra hour to bakery and tortilla because they have to do their preparation. And their people buy these things earlier. So 5 a.m. to 4 p.m. bakeries and tortilla factories, 6 a.m. to 4 p.m. markets, 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. pharmacies, hotels and villas, but remember, these people are only allowed to open to maintain the place primarily. Storefront outlets, we had said originally from 8 to 7, and they were supposed to be closed for the next 14 days. However, as I said earlier, coming this Friday, they will be open from 8 to 4, so you could pay your bills only.
Okay.
Service of takeout or drive-through facility only at restaurants, saloons, diners, and other similar establishments. Provided takeout, drive-through, then in restaurants, locked down till April 30th. You cannot drive through to the restaurant. You cannot go to the restaurant and take out food. However, you notice what is missing from there, delivery. The restaurants can operate, cook the food, and deliver it to people.
Okay.
International services such as DHL, FedEx, Amerijet, open. Those are open, as I said, from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. Domestic delivery services related to meals, groceries, medical supplies, and equipment. So if you provide domestic services within the country, like BPMS and stuff, medical supplies, equipment, groceries. Wholesalers, and remember, the wholesalers have to close their storefronts and only supply their retailers. And if you're a wholesaler and a retailer, you'll be treated as a wholesaler and you have to close your store. However, you can fill orders to the essential service providers. The Belize Zoo, and then from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., this of course is the most popular one, convenience stores, food stores, supermarkets, meat shop. So shop open morning 8, close 4. Butchers, distributors, and people who make soft drink and stuff, 8 to 4. Provided that distributors and factories of carbonated, in other words then, the law is these are open from 8 to 4, but only if they make water, not if they make soft drink and stuff. That can for close. Mechanic shops and garages and auto parts stores. Provided that mechanic shops, garages, and auto parts stores shall not be open to the general public for a period of 14 days unless you're providing service to an essential services sector. So if you're a mechanic shop, you cannot open to the general public. You can open to service the ambulance, the Ministry of Health, or you could open for service on police vehicle. It has to be that that service is reserved for the people who are considered essential. Then with 24-hour period now, you have certain places who just can't stop. Food mills, sugar and citrus, oil production, port operations, and anything of the loading and unloading. The public utilities, BTL, BL. But remember, these people, even though they're allowed to open 24 hours, they must make sure that their shifts are such that people are inside before 8 p.m. and they don't leave till 5 a.m. in the morning. And that's pretty much it for that purpose. Everything else has remained the same. I think those are the most important aspects of it. Remember as well, as I had mentioned before, try not to move from your community or your locality. If you can buy something at a shop on your street, go to that shop. You know, must go cross town, figure buy the same item you could buy next door. Exceptions, of course, are like a person who in one district runs a potable water factory, but he needs a part that he can only purchase from another district, where you can understand that he would have to go to that district to purchase that part to produce it. But other than that, if he could have bought that part in his locality, then he shouldn't leave. And the rest are standard as before. Casinos, gymnasiums, barbershops, disco, then they close.
Okay, let's
Now that's from Monday. That's from Monday, Dorian, until Saturday.
Saturday at 8 p.m.
At 8 p.m.
Right.
Now, of course, there are other stuff in the SI, but I think those are the most important ones that we're touching on. On Sunday, the regulation says movement outside of the curfew time on a Sunday. This is one of the changes we recently made, but this is the law now. On a Sunday, between 5 in the morning and 8 at night. The only people who are allowed to move and open are the essential services people mentioned in Schedule 1. What is Schedule 1? Per Sunday, if you don't work for the Ministry of National Security, if you don't work for Border Management and Immigration, Customs, if you're not a cabinet member or a member of the National Assembly, if you don't work in the medical field, if you don't work for private security, if you don't work for public use of water or a farmer, if you're not a member of the media, Port Authority, Governor General, National Fire Service, BEL, BWSL, Telemedia, SpeedNet. If you don't work for any of those 19 things that I just mentioned, you can't be on the street on a Sunday. In other words then, on a Sunday, everything will close except the 19 things where I just mentioned. And it sounds like lot, but I know that. Restaurant, convenience stores, food stores, grocery markets, everything closed for Sunday. And if you don't work for National Security, Customs, Cabinet, Hospital, Security, BTL, BEL, BWSL, Port, Governor General, Media, you are not even allowed to be on the street on a Sunday. On a Sunday, everything locked down except the essential services mentioned, that I just mentioned. Those are the only people allowed to be on the street going to those places to do their work. Which means these places are allowed to operate along with the 24-hour ones that I just mentioned, which are, if we could go back to that, which are the mills and the oil production and the sugar, citrus, and the public utilities and independent energy producers. So only those 24-hour places, food mills, sugar, citrus, and the like, oil production, port operation, public utilities, only those, along with the 19 I just mentioned, are allowed to operate on a Sunday, and only the people who must work that day for these entities are allowed to be on the street on a Sunday. Other than that, stay home on a Sunday. Come Monday, shop open up back, market open up back. On a Sunday, all that closed. So if you know you have a special situation with a person that you need to deal with every day, and I give the famous example of what we heard entire weekend. So I have one granny where I have to carry my food, care for she food for she every day, that house. And she can't leave the house, and now she want to live there. So somebody from the family will have to make the sacrifice to go to granny Saturday night and stay with granny till Monday morning. Or bring granny to your house Saturday night, so you could have granny there, and then Monday morning you can run back home. But know that that's the situation, and everybody has to make the adjustment. So that's where we are so far, Dorian. And as I said, please keep in mind the things that are not the law yet, but that will become the law by Friday. And beloved brothers and sisters, please follow the protocols. Please follow the rules and regulations. Because if more people start to contract this disease, the regulations will get rougher than they are now, because the government has to take steps to preserve life. So if we don't tighten up and more people contract this disease, then indeed every day will be like Sunday. Because then the regulations that operate to Sunday, that operate on Sunday, will operate for every day. So everything will lock down absolutely, completely. And then we'll have to come up with ways for people to get their food and stuff in their homes. We're trying to prevent that. We're trying to allow people to still come out and buy their stuff. Live some form of a life as close to pre-COVID as we could find. However, if we have to crack down even more, we will. Whether we do that or not depends on how we behave as a population.
All right. AG, let's go ahead and get into some questions. I know a lot of people have questions and a lot of people want their questions answered. But first and foremost, I have a question for you.
Yes.
The amendment to SI 46 that went into effect, I believe it was Saturday?
Yes.
This past Saturday?
Yeah.
Those stipulations were in place for 14 days. Will this new amendment extend that 14 days?
No. These new amendments that will happen here will only go up to about April 30th.
Okay.
So come April 30th, the government will have to go back to the National Assembly to extend the state of emergency.
Okay. There's a state of emergency.
Everything that's why we say for the next 14 years, because come April 30th, these rules and regulations will fall by the wayside. So the government will have to go to the National Assembly to extend them.
No, we keep getting this question, and especially the people in Ambergris Key.
Right.
Are they still operating under a different set of rules, or do these rules apply to the entire country as is now?
They apply to the entire country.
So Ambergris
No municipality, no district, no part of the country has special rules again. Remember when we found the first 2 cases in San Pedro?
Right.
We created special rules for San Pedro. And then when we had the situation in Cayo, we created special rules for Cayo. However, we have suspended all of those. In this very SI, it says, the following orders are hereby suspended, which is the emergency measure, the quarantine. Remember we had a quarantine order one time? When people were saying simply because it was under the Quarantine Act, it had to be a quarantine. No, that foolishness, but that is suspended. The state of emergency for Ambergris Key is suspended, and the emergency powers for Ambergris Key is suspended. So what I just read to you applies to the entire country, including San Pedro.
Okay. You addressed one of these issues when it comes to fishing. That only people who make their livelihoods from fishing may be out fishing. No, I think there's still some confusion when it comes to exercise.
No,
I don't know. Have you?
There's no confusion when it comes to exercise. Exercise, we were allowed to exercise in Cayo. If you live in Cayo, you are allowed to exercise between 5 a.m. and 8 a.m.
Okay, so there's a specific window when it comes to exercise, 5 a.m.
I see people exercise that evening. Oh my goodness. It's 5 a.m. to 8 a.m. except Sunday.
Sunday, no exercise.
Sunday, no exercise.
So you getting your exercise between 5 and 8 a.m.?
Yes. I get my exercise between 5 and I use the full 3 hours. From 5 to 8, Monday to Saturday, Sunday take a leave break. If I could take a break Sunday, the work take a break Sunday. So from 5 to 8 in the morning. So that evening you're not for the exercise. Jogging and walking while maintaining the protocol. 3 feet apart, some would say you're extra sweaty and so 6 feet apart, but maintain that social distancing protocol.
Right. Okay,
So you can exercise every day. 5 in the morning till 8 in the morning, but no Sunday.
Okay. Now, let me ask you about this question has been recurring as well. When it comes to private security guards, what do they fall under? Do they fall under essential services?
They fall under essential services, they fall under Schedule 1.
Okay, so they'll be able to move.
They'll be able to move
on Sundays.
On a Sunday. However, even though you're allowed to move on a Sunday, remember, Sunday has its own rules, but what applies to every day, including Sunday, is the curfew from 8 at night to 5 in the morning. So if you're a security guard, having to report for duty 12 midday on Sunday, you're allowed to leave your house and report to your post. However, for your sake, your shift better end at 7 so you could get home before 8 p.m. Because then if your shift ends at 10, you can't be on the streets after 8 p.m. So we're asking our security firms, and some people have done it without a hitch. So I don't know what is the issue. Just go to 2 12-hour shifts. Have your people report 7 in the morning, and then they knock off 7 at night. The new crew comes in 7 at night and knock off 7 in the morning, and curfew doesn't affect you at all. And you're allowed to move on the Sunday to report to your post. That's what the law is now. That's one of the recent changes, but that's the law now.
Okay. Now, someone wants to know what's the rationale for stricter, more stringent rules on a Sunday, as opposed it's just one day of the week as opposed to 6 other days. Why pick just that one day to have strict measures?
I think it's twofold. I think that we need to have one day when we at least shut down, so that we can bring some or as much calm to the country as possible. Let's have one day where everybody is not running around and we're reducing the risk. So we have one day where, you know what, shop shit. But as well, part of the reasoning is that we have to let people get a taste of what could possibly be the reality in the future. Listen, you see how Sunday me stand this past Sunday when they make all kind of meme about me, all kind of thing they say about me, kind of vex about Sunday. Imagine that day every day.
It was rough, and I could tell you from my part, even though I've been practicing social distancing and I've been staying home for the most part. If I don't have to move, then I won't. But for myself, just being at home, which I wasn't planning on going anywhere, but just knowing that I couldn't go anywhere,
it's a problem.
Just the psychological effect of that.
So when you experience that Sunday, this past Sunday, understand that that could be the case every day if the situation gets worse. So please, as we ease up and as we get more control of the situation, we can let Sunday be like a regular day. But for now, just know what can be the case every day if we have to.
Okay, someone here has a question about the banks, but let's be clear. Financial institutions close at what time? 12 p.m.
The law currently is that, so tomorrow the banks will open 8 to 12. What we're hoping for is that no less than Saturday or Monday, banks will open up until 4 p.m. But that's not the law as yet. As we speak, the banks are 8 to 12, but there will be a change. It will be 8 to 4.
Okay. So we have another question here. Mr. Perifeet, how about the shipping companies? Relatives that sent items from the U.S. to us for assistance during this pandemic, will the crew be able to distribute throughout Belize so that it gets to us?
Well, the law is here that Amerijet is open, FedEx is open, those port for cargo and the like is open for 24 hours. Those aren't closed now. So as far as the law is concerned, that should not be an issue.
So can people pick up, or does that service have to deliver to them?
Well, I mean, delivery would have to take place. Okay. Delivery is the best thing, and I'm telling you, and let me say this from now, because most of these places where you pick up from, it's a congested area, so delivery is always the best thing to arrange for. However, I like the public to understand that preference will be given for medical supplies. So those will be the things that will be distributed first, I can imagine. And a focus will be on those. So we ask everybody to be patient. And we ask everybody to not be ordering too many things from abroad that you don't absolutely need right now. Because then if you fill up the plane or the cargo, with unnecessary things, you're not making space for medical supplies and things that we need. So we ask people to hold back on that as much as possible, but if you need it, you need it, and the services are there because they are allowed to operate port operations and services connected with loading and unloading of ships and aircrafts and delivery to and from ports. That's open 24 hours. So that continues.
Okay, here's a great question as well. Some business places have been closed for weeks. Some material and inventory needs to be rotated and checked. Can a designated employee state that as a legitimate reason for being out if stopped and questioned by the police?
Well,
they're not opening their business, but
right.
They're going into their business
Yes.
to check their stock,
Yes.
inventory, make sure everything's okay.
That's fair. That should be fine. But you understand as well that that should not be done too regularly. You cannot be open to the public for business. But if you need to stock take, if you need to deal with your issues, deal with it. Maybe 1 or 2 persons maximum. You don't want everybody showing up there just for stock taking. So yes, that would be allowed because people have to understand that you have to limit the amount of people on the street, while at the same time the government understands your need to make sure that you have a running business when all these bans are lifted. And let me use this opportunity, Dorian, to highlight something to you. You have a lot of businesses who are complaining. Oh, we have to close this and we have to close that. Why we can't operate longer? Listen to me. Be grateful that you're allowed to operate, you know. You have a lot of businesses who have had to shut down. And so we tell the people who are allowed to open, be grateful as well, you know, for that privilege that you've been given to open your place of business. So when you're moving your shrimp or you're moving your goods across the country and the police have to stop you and question you a little bit and it takes a little bit longer for you to move your product and your produce, understand, you know, that at least you're moving your stuff. So continue to cooperate with the police, continue to ensure that you make their jobs easier, and hopefully we can get through this thing quicker than we think we can.
Along the same lines of that last question, for instance, there are businesses that are operating remotely. For instance, I know some of the call centers have been operating remotely. Now, because they're still operating, because they're able to operate remotely and work from home, you might have someone who needs to go in, maybe an HR person needs to go in and do payroll. Would they be able to go into the business similarly to like someone who's going to check their inventory and stock? One person designated to go in and do payroll so that they can...
As long as it's not every day, it's not too regular,
right,
and it's within the non-curfew hours. We fully understand. We have already informed the banks, the central bank as well, that if there's an emergency and you need technical people to go in and do that support for you, that can be accommodated as long as it's not too regular and it is pointed and necessary at the time. If you have a glitch in your system and you need to go into that system and deal with it right away, then you will be allowed to do that. Absolutely.
Okay, I just was told that with regard to the banks, they're working until 4, but however, I believe that they're open to the public until 2 p.m., and then they would remain open for back-end work until 4 p.m.
Well, if they're open to the public until 2 p.m.
2 p.m. No, they're 12. It's 12 p.m. now.
Right.
But the amendment will be till 2 p.m. and then they can work in the back end till 4.
They will be open. No, that's not what they will be allowed to be open to the public.
Okay.
From 8 in the morning till 4 p.m. to the public.
Okay.
They will do their back-end work after 4 p.m. so that their employees can be finished and get home before 8 p.m.
Okay. Now, with that, how does a bank employee get their children from the babysitter after they get off of work at 4 p.m. and the children can't dip on the street after 4?
Well, something will have to be figured out.
Yeah.
So something will have to be figured out.
Yeah,
it's an
arrangements
issue.
will have to be made, and
some
sacrifices,
arrangements
like
will
you
have
said.
to be made, and some sacrifices will have to be made.
Okay.
if that child is under 16, and the police will use their good discretion. If a person has to pick up a babysitter at 4, go to the babysitter and pick up a child at 4, that person clearly works at an establishment that's allowed to be open till 4. And they're in a car, or they're with the person walking directly to home. Well, then we can
Some
can
discretion would
understand
have to be
Some discretion
exercised.
would have, but don't make it a habit. Don't make it a regular thing. Find out a way to circumvent that. Have some arrangement. Listen, like we said, Dorian, everybody has to make a sacrifice. The bank, then your employer will have to understand that you will work from 8 to 3, and you can be let out at 3, and then for you to go and pick up your child and take your child home before 4. So if you're a bank, if you're an establishment that's lucky enough to be allowed to open till 4, and you have people in there who have children who are under 16 who stay at a babysitter or a nanny or whatever, allow these people time to go and get their children so they and their children can be home before 4 p.m. Everybody has to make the adjustment. We are all a part of this solution.
Right, I agree. Now, can farmers from Cayo and elsewhere supply Belize with their produce? As far as, because that would entail moving across districts.
Yeah, well then that's necessary. If you're a farmer in, say for example, Tea Kettle or Kamalote or one of those places, and you sell your produce at the Belmopan market, clearly you have to pass the localities. But you will have to demonstrate that you are going to the Belmopan market to sell your produce, and that clearly you're a farmer.
Mm-hmm.
You can't leave Tea Kettle to go to the Belmopan market, go hang out. You going to go conduct business. So in a case like that, when the police say, sir, where you headed to? Belmopan market, boss, there I got my star with parcel, and I go, well, then the police will let you through.
Okay. Now, we have a question about delivery trucks going out district and meeting checkpoints. There have been some instances where the police have ticketed the passengers for having more than 2 people, 3 people in the cab of the delivery truck. However, the business person is saying, as a distributor, it's almost impossible to send 2 people to unload such a large amount.
So then, boss, make the sacrifice like everybody is making. Be grateful.
Send an extra
that you're
vehicle.
allowed. Send an extra vehicle then. Send behind that truck that's delivering goods and services, send another car where it can hold 4 people. I mean, we have to make the adjustments,
Mm-hmm. Okay. Are academic necessities considered essential? Some students need access to attain necessary materials to complete given assignments by the teachers on online platforms.
What do you mean academic?
As far as when it comes to academia, people doing distance learning or such, or
And what
online
supplies
classes.
would they need, for example?
I would not know, sir. I'm asking the questions as they're posed to me.
Because involved in convenience stores and store like that, you people sell what? Pens, books, writing material. I figure if you're doing an online course, most of your stuff is online.
Well, maybe it might be, maybe they might have a experiment or something that they're conducting via Zoom or something like that and need materials to conduct that
Well,
experiment.
we can suppose many things, but I think it's standard known that everybody understands that in a COVID-19 situation, your work is tailored towards people staying home and not having to go for those type of supplies. So if you have this science experiment that you have been dying for your students to do, I mean, please allow it to wait until after 14 years, possibly.
Okay. Now, what about caregivers for sick persons moving during the daytime?
Yeah,
Do
but
they need during non-curfew hours? Are they okay to move during the daytime?
Yes, if they're going to give home care to people who are sick and elderly and need it.
Okay. Do tire shops fall under mechanics? You know, people are always trying to stretch and see, but do with a tire shop?
Tire shop. No, if you're allowed to open and operate if you're servicing an essential vehicle.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So as a, okay, well, let's see. Okay. What about protected areas, park rangers? Where do they fall in that?
No, they fall under that. If you have security people, you're talking about, my favorite example is Sudantonich. The people who are the rangers for these places are allowed to protect our national treasures. Just stymie your shifts so that none of them have to be on the street after 8 p.m. and before 5 a.m.
Okay. Prison officers,
No,
where do they fall?
I mean, do them again in the shifts.
Right.
Have
So
them
it's up to
going with
Colby.
7 at night, come out 7 at night. Just avoid the issue with the curfew. Remember, prisons fall under national security. Prison falls under national security, which is Schedule 1. The first item on that is the Ministry of National Security. Prisons falls under Home Affairs.
Okay.
They are an essential service. They are allowed to go to and from work. However, we state, put your shifts in such a way that you don't violate the curfew hours.
Okay. Now, well, I would imagine this is an emergency, but you're the expert, so I'll let you answer. Can a person move for the purpose of a death in the family?
What do you mean? Give me more details.
Well, if let's say I know someone who's actually this was a case this weekend for someone close to us here at the press office. Their grandmother passed over the weekend, but their grandmother passed in Orange Walk,
Right.
and they live in Belmopan. So I know we're trying to limit commuting across municipalities, but in that instance,
When you give an example using a grandmother, who can argue with that, right?
right.
If that would necessitate an emergency, but remember, we're preventing people from socializing. And we're already saying when it comes to funerals and stuff, you should have 10 or less persons, for example. If it's an emergency and you must be there, then that is considered to be an emergency. But if it's not absolutely urgent that you be there, then you will have to send your condolences. Listen. We're trying to limit movement. If you don't have to move, if you and a relative are extremely close and it will be in the best interest and the emotional well-being of the family for you to move across the community lines to go and visit relatives, surviving relatives, to help out with funeral preparations and stuff, then do it. But if it, in Belize, almost everybody related to everybody, or you can almost say, well, that's my cousin, that's my sister, if it's your 10th cousin.
Twice removed.
I mean, really, is it really an emergency for you to be there?
Okay. What about the Belize Tax Service offices countrywide? Will they be open?
Well, they will be closed for the next 14 days. They fall under the Ministry of Finance under Schedule 2.
Okay.
That means you're not prepared to pay your taxes,
Oh, well, that was going to be the next question. I know someone had asked me if they were able to go into their place of business to prepare their taxes, because GST, I think they have to pay every so often, and they wanted to know if they could go in and prepare their taxes or go onto their computer system to bring up their accounts. So
and remember, if there's an online service, then you can do an online service.
Okay. So, someone's asking, can you speak about communication with the police department as it relates to the state of emergency? And this is something that's actually come up quite a bit. If you pay attention, I know you're not on social media, but if you pay attention to social media over the past week or so, some people, it seems that there might be somewhat of a disconnect. I can tell you my experience. Just this past weekend on Saturday, before the new amendment went into effect at 8 p.m., I know at that up until that point,
Right.
restaurants were allowed to open till 7.
Right.
However, I witnessed officer shut down a restaurant at 4 o'clock p.m. and saying that's the rule and shut them down and deprive them of 3 hours of business because that law had not taken effect at that point. Can you just speak to that then in terms of the officers being educated and being aware of the regulations and the stipulations?
There shouldn't be any disconnect. The Commissioner of Police is an attorney. Assistant Commissioner Bart Jones is an attorney. Inspector Sambala is an attorney. And those are just the ones I can remember. But certainly, when we pass these amendments on to the Commissioner, I am sure he passes it on to Assistant Commissioner Jones and the other people who would then inform the commanders of the current law, and then the commanders would inform their people of what that current law is. So there shouldn't be any disconnect. But be rest assured that if there is any disconnect, any police officer can simply ask their commander or ask their station chief, who will guide them on what the law is. And it's on the system. It's on your website. Every security officer is mandated to go on that website and read. So there should not be any. But we will remind the police commissioner and his leadership team that they should disseminate the information so that even if somebody is acting outside of these regulations, they're clearly doing so purposely and not from a lack of understanding.
And I want to say in the same vein that I've seen a lot of stories praising the job and the work of the police that they're doing at checkpoints. I myself have stopped at checkpoints, and I can't say my experience. They've been very courteous, and I see they're doing their due diligence. I know for the past few days it's been backed up in Ladyville, where I live going into the city. It's been backed up at that checkpoint at Manatee Lookout. But I also like to ask the public to bear some patience because they're doing their job as well. Yes. And like I said, in my experience, they've been quite courteous, and we commend them for that.
And I do want to thank as well the people who not only give us their verbal support, which is very encouraging and very uplifting, but the people who actually make real contributions. I have a couple of friends who asked for special permission if they could prepare some food, and then they went because they have to deal with the checkpoint. They are essential service workers, and they see the police officers standing in the sun all day, some of them for hours upon hours. I mean, a simple gesture as when you go to the shop and you buy a bottle of water, the policeman there one man. You know, one company, I don't want to announce it yet because I don't want to preempt it. One local company has offered to give each person in Belize City, they want to start there because that's where the company is, 1 plate of food per day for the remainder of the emergency, so that at least each officer can have lunch for that day. And all of the different people who make small but important gestures, such as bringing a snack for the policemen, such as taking food for the policemen, is greatly, greatly appreciated because they enable the rest of us to sleep at night. And they, along with the Coast Guard, who have been working tirelessly with limited resources, working the seas, putting in the work, and of course the BDF. So all the members of the entire national security apparatus, they've been giving their all. And any gesture to show that you appreciate them is accepted with love.
Okay, we're going to take 3 final questions before we wrap up here. This question, I would like to ask the Attorney General if private developments such as Gallon Jug and the Mennonite settlements are excused from the restrictions in Regulation 5 of SI 46 of 2020, as it states that they are only applicable to public places and public roads, whereas Regulation 4, which deals with the curfew, applies to the entire country of Belize.
Right. What we're saying is that this is a national emergency. Nothing is private. In a national emergency that applies to the entire country. If you have private property, that's fine. But anything that's accessible, if you notice we say public road or public space, anything that's accessible by the public falls under this national emergency.
Okay. Now, are there measures in place to deal with price gouging? I know that's governed by the Belize Bureau of Standards. However, I don't know if you're able to speak to that as far as there have been reports of some grocers raising their prices on certain items.
Well, if you have that, immediately report that to the Bureau of Standards. Or you can even report it to a police officer who would then ensure that that message reaches the Bureau of Standards.
Okay. Let me find one.
And let me go back to people providing home care. You asked earlier about a person going every day to look after somebody who is elderly from whatever. We have in place, there are social workers in this document. As a social worker, you're allowed to respond to emergencies. But if you're a person and you live in a house with 2-3 rooms and you need a caregiver every day, have that caregiver move in with your money. Okay. Or if you're looking after an elderly person, have that elderly person, you move them, it's a family member, move them into your home so you can look after them. It's a sacrifice that we all make because you want to limit movement.
Okay, domestic workers, what about domestic workers as far as house cleaners and such?
No, that's not covered here.
So people have to clean their own house?
Clean their own house, unless the dirt has been built up to such a terrible level that it's become a medical emergency and you need somebody to go in. But we ask everybody to try and do that as best as they can for this period.
Well,
and like I said, Dorian, all the restrictions and inconveniences that we have, we can start to release some of them the more we have a control of the situation. And what will allow us to have a control of the situation is how people behave with regard to the regulations.
Well, AG, thank you for coming on. We appreciate your time spent with us. We didn't get to all of the questions. We have more questions, but hopefully we can get some answers for those in another time, and we'll post those on our Facebook page. So we want to thank everybody who's been tuned in. We want to thank you for your questions. Remember to practice safe social distancing. Keep yourself and your family safe by staying home. Wash your hands regularly, cough and sneeze into your elbow, and dispose of any tissue immediately. So if you have any concerns, again, there's the hotline, 0800 MOH care. That's 0800-664-2273. And you can always visit the COVID-19 website, www.covid19.bz. Every day there's a graphic put up that shows you the latest cases of if there are any confirmed cases. So please keep following that. And as always, the Government of Belize Facebook page. Once again, Belize, stay safe and God bless. Thank you.